This isn't a podcast on labeling product marketing. This is a podcast for product marketing managers who feel misunderstood internally.
Because building slide decks and writing copy is not all that we do.
So are today's product marketers actually marketers?
All right. Hello, everybody, for another episode of We're Not Marketers. Today, we've got a very special guest who's near and dear to my heart, Mr. Andy McCotter-Bicknell. And I'll be honest with you, I'd say for about going on 2 years, he's been one of the biggest voices in my life, especially on LinkedIn. The value he brings to the competitive community every day, both within his own work and what he's doing in healthy competition, has really brought me up quite a few levels over the last 2 years. Now, if you're not familiar with Andy, he's currently working at Apollo.io. He's used to be with ClickUp right before that, and before that came ZoomInfo. Enough of coming from me, Andy. Let's give you the mic and give you some color on what you're doing right now and where people can find you.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much. That was such a nice intro. You've been such an awesome guy to get to know over the past couple of years. You've been in a few different courses for competitive intel and ready for launch. So the one that we did with Jason Oakley and Tamir Graminsky, and you've obviously been super vocal in healthy competition. So I appreciate you. Hey everyone, I'm Andy. Eric pretty much did the whole intro bit. I'm at Apollo.io now, leading competitive intel there, and then I also lead or moderate a community called Healthy Competition. It's for product marketers and competitive intel practitioners, and so we just hang out in there and share tips and tricks how to win and build really cool competitive intel programs.
Awesome. And I'm gonna pry a little bit deeper, because if you're watching by video, you might see there's a drum set back there, and I've got just a general question, Andy. What's that all about? And why is it in your background?
Yeah, I do play drums, and it's in my background because this was so I live in an apartment and got 2 bedrooms, and this is the den that I'm in right now. And it used to just be like where I had my drum kit, and it was like just storage and all that kind of stuff. And I used to share my the guest room with my wife for our office. And we quickly realized after sharing that for a few, probably close to a year, we were like, hey, we should probably, I speak really loudly when I'm in meetings, and she's not in as many meetings. And so it can be pretty distracting. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to build out the den and make it my own. And so number one, it just looks nice in the background. I like the color, the finish of the drum kit. So that's nice. Number two, it's a conversation starter. People usually ask about the drum kit, and then I can talk about music with folks. But I do also play the drums. And so it's not just for decoration, but I've played drums pretty much my entire life at this point. Yeah. So that's the story behind the kit.
Maybe our second musician on the pod.
Was that Zach?
We said that's our second musician on the pod.
Oh, who's number one?
Yeah, you're right. Did you know Anthony Pieri is in a band?
Yeah. We play similar styles of music. I got to see if he wants to do something for sure. He's legit though. If you go to, he posted about some of the stats his band has gotten on Spotify. He's like a real band. Yeah.
No, his band.
Solid.
I thought all of your competitive excellence came you just go drumming away and it just oozes out of you. That's your kind of creative spirit. I'm glad to hear the full story behind this. And we've got a very important question we like to ask every single one of our guests. And we like to let Gab do the honors, because he does have the silkiest, smoothest voice of all 3 of us. So take it away, Gab.
Thank you. I'm trying to practice my voice every night just to making sure that I can ask this question correctly. But prior to asking it, I just want to say that you're the 3rd guest of the Ready for Launch team. We got Jason, we got Tamara, so really excited to get your point of view on this. But Andy, are product marketers actually marketers? Why or why not?
Yes.
And before you answer this, Andy, your cohort group is split 50-50 right now. So you are the deciding vote. You are the deciding vote on Ready for Launch.
Wow.
So before you answer, I'm adding more weight to this.
Wow.
Because I think
We're
I did your answer.
No, we're not marketers exclusive.
Oh my God. I didn't actually, I was going to ask you who has said no to this, but okay. Yeah, no, I think yes, absolutely. And to me, this is one of those existential questions where it's in my head, it's obvious, but who was it? I think Jason said we were marketers, but Tamara says no.
She says absolutely not.
Really? Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, that's okay. I can't wait to listen to that. Yeah, I think we are. Maybe I don't know like what marketing is, or maybe I don't know what product marketing is. Maybe I shouldn't be
Andy's out here questioning his whole career right now.
I'm like, should I even be on this podcast right now? Okay, got it. All right. Yeah, I think yes.
All right, then give us your why.
When I think of marketing, when like back in school, it was all about like the 4 Ps of marketing, right? And I probably can't even remember what was it. It's like promotion, price, product, place, yeah.
Please.
Yep.
And we do that as product marketers. At least I write copy. The only thing that's like not really marketing that I do is more the enablement and like the project management side of things. But everything else I feel like is rooted in some sort of marketing capacity. And so that, yeah, I wish I had a more interesting answer. It's just when I went to school, and I'm doing the stuff that pretty much I expected would be happening. Like when I went to school, it was a marketing degree. And the application's a little bit different. I mean, you never do the exact thing that you think you would do in school, but in either case, yeah, I would say yes. Yeah.
So it sounds like you have two components of what both Jason and what Tamara said in prior, and I'm going to call out each one. Jason's piece, he said the 4 fundamentals of product marketing as to why it's part of marketing. It's like research, positioning, launch, and enablement. So he would even say the work you do falls in that marketing piece. Where Tamara will say this is why product marketers aren't marketers, is that the strategy. And we see a lot of the work you do today in really evangelizing and showing how to build strategy with competitive intel. So a follow-up specifically with competitive intel, one challenge with product marketers in a B2B space is that if you're a generalist, you're doing a little bit of everything. And that may mean that you're getting boxed out of that go-to-market, of influencing go-to-market. How has being a specialist with competitive intel function within product marketing made it easier or harder in influencing a broader company objective or just a broader strategy within the organization?
That's a good question. It depends on the company, and it depends on what everyone else thinks of competitive intel. Like if the product team is really concerned, like understands the importance of what competitors are doing, and they can put that against what they know customers are looking for, prospects are expecting. That makes it really easy to quote unquote like influence the product roadmap because they understand the importance of it. Same with sales. If sales is running into a lot of competitors in their deals, then they're probably going to be more interested in understanding, from a competitive perspective, how do we win? How are we differentiated? What are the things that we can do better or different or whatever than the competitor? It's funny too. I'm just thinking more about this like product marketing to marketers question. I'm thinking like, I think strategy, it just because something like is strategy doesn't mean that it's not marketing. CMOs, like they're very strategic people, and they're by their title, they are marketers. Same with like VPs. And usually the higher up you're being a bit more strategic. You have to be thinking that way in order to be like leading the organization through. You're thinking like quarters ahead, years ahead, in order to make sure that the company stays like differentiated and top of mind and at the forefront. The brand is really strong. And I mean, it's not saying that VPs can't ever get like tactical or anything like that, but that's the only like thing I'm thinking about as it relates to being strategic. But that's the other thing too. Yeah, you do have to flex those muscles as a generalist and as an IC in order to try to get promoted and try to get more visibility. And that's usually when you start getting a bit more strategic. I've also found that helps bring more attention to like your competitive program and the way that you enable things. Just because usually when people see that you're putting more emphasis on a specific area, a function that maybe doesn't get as much attention in general, like competitive intel. In most organizations that I've worked at, it wasn't a formal function before I started. And so when they see the work that you're putting in and how you're thinking strategically about that function and how it's important, you're educating everyone. That's something that also like, oh, it kind of like wakes people up a little bit more and flexes a different side of their brain. And so that's also been a way of quote unquote like influencing GTM, is like creating something that wasn't there before and helping other people understand like, oh, this is another like way of thinking to improve whatever it is that they're doing.
I love what you just said about the fact that it wasn't necessarily important before you came into the role. They didn't necessarily have one specific CI person, and just by seeing the way you were acting and having those guardrails and those ideology and just thinking about stuff, make them realize that, hey, this isn't something we can just put on the back burner. And this is bringing me to a specific question. Do you think it's easier technically once companies understand the need of competitive intelligence? Is it easier to be like the CI guy than the PMM?
For me, it is because I like it so much. It depends. Some people don't like it. Some people like it. For me, and I don't know if it's because I love like the drama of CIs. I love like reality TV. I love like hearing like what other people are saying about. I love all that stuff. How can you not like it? It keeps things interesting. No, but really, I love hearing like, oh, what are other people saying about our company or our product? Oh, and then what did we say back? Like when we heard that, ooh, and like it's kind of a little like kid inside of me that like almost like a guilty pleasure kind of a, if you ever watch the Kardashian or like 90 Day Fiance, stuff like that, like reality TV, like you can say that influenced or like plays a part in my love for CI. And then help once you see the whole spectrum of what they're saying, what we're saying, what the truth is, and how they might mask that. And once you can kind of get that whole picture, then you can get again really strategic and you can put together like a better kind of way of positioning, and you can help other people share that message. And that can be applied in so many different ways, in sales, in product, in marketing. And CI is, I feel like, really like is in the best area to touch all of those groups. Product marketing, it depends on again the company. Like you could argue that product marketers that are just focused on like launches and messaging and whatnot, they might touch those same departments as well. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just like the subject matter that really gets me excited. And whenever I've done product marketing, it's been a little more project management than I would prefer in my day to day. And CI, I feel like I'm a little bit more on my own, trying to put together my own like hypothesis. I can do my own research, and then I can share my findings, and then can really bring it like into a discussion. But then, like, if I am looped into a launch, I'm not really like owning the launch. I'm contributing to it, and so that's at least my preference, and like how I've found CI to be a little bit easier.
Nice. Love the reference to reality TV, and I definitely understand it, especially with I think in the past few months with ZoomInfo and Apollo.
Oh yeah.
The little yeah,
Oh yeah.
that was really definitely
Yeah, it's like
super
you
interesting.
can't look away. Come on. Exactly.
Exactly.
So entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna dive deeper into that topic, and let's use that reality TV piece for this portion of the conversation. We had Tamara on yesterday, Andy, and she was talking a little bit about category creation. One quote she said is that the purpose you want to be so good at creating a category that you have no competitors. Let's say that, hey, like Kim Kardashian, the Kardashians, like reality TV experts will argue and say, yo, like the Kardashians have no competitors because they really changed the reality TV landscape. Would you agree with what Tamar has said, that if you create a category, that there's less of an emphasis on competition, and that may not be as needed in those situations? Curious to get your POV on that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never been a part of a company that's like truly gone the category creation route. We've always dabbled in a differentiated way of saying, oh, we're not just playing in this one category, we're playing in like these other ones too. That's the one consistent thing with all the companies that I've worked at. It's never just like one category that's like a consolidation, like all in one type of a play. And more recently with ClickUp and Apollo, they've been really leaning into they're almost like older, like more mature categories that have stood the test of time, but then they're coming in and changing people's perspectives on those categories. So ClickUp with project management, Apollo with sales intelligence or sales execution, whatever you want to call it. I wish I could give a little bit more experience to that whole, do you think about competitors as often when you're creating categories? If you read Play Bigger or anything like that, then the answer would probably be no, you wouldn't think as much about competitors. But um, at the end of the day, you also do need to consider what the alternatives are when you're building a category, because you need to know where you're going to be going left, where everyone else is going right. At the end of the day, even though you might not be thinking about, hey, our competitors doing A, B, or C, you still need to understand, what does the audience think of these types of solutions or this type of category or these types of products? What do they typically use? Why do they use them? And then you have to find a way of pivoting in a way that makes you significantly different than those companies. So to answer your question, it's like a little bit of yes, it's a little bit of no. Like I would assume that you would be trying to do your own thing on like a day-to-day basis, going to market. But like before you establish that category, you have to have a pretty good understanding of who you're up against most consistently and like what the status quo is.
So now focus up, like have it on your periphery. It's similar to driving a car. Make a
Yeah.
lane change. Look at that side.
Yeah, I would say like that whoever like the CEO or like the leadership team, they have to understand like who they, and I'm sure they do. They're crazy competitive. Like I've never really met a leader who like doesn't want to win. You know what I mean? They just like they know they are the original CI person. Like they understand like what the landscape. They're the people who are usually like identifying this company as, oh, this is like a huge opportunity for us. And so, yeah, like they understand it in the very beginning. They have to continue to have like an understanding of like what the status quo is. And that usually probably would fall under like more customer research than probably competitive research. But then, yeah, on more of a day to day, they're probably not thinking as much of, hey, what's competitor A doing right now? What are some of these product launches look? They're probably not doing as much of that as someone that like a ClickUp or an Apollo.
Are there instances where you feel founders are focusing on the wrong competitors? Let's say that I'm leading walking tours and I'm saying I'm going to go after Salesforce.
Yeah, it's not usually as, even though I love joking about that. It's like the thing that I have seen most consistently is founders or leaders like will have an idea of who the competitor is, and then that won't change for years. Like I think it might have to do with like when they started, and you typically do right some sort of competitive analysis when you first start, and you try to understand, okay, who are we up against? But then the thing with competitive analysis at a lot of companies, again, because they don't have a dedicated CI person, it's becoming more common, but for a lot of companies they won't do another analysis for a really, really long time. And they lose track of what their landscape looks like. And things are just moving so quickly these days. Competitors like are going out of business, new ones are coming in, and it just changes all the time. And so what I've seen actually most frequently is leaders still hanging on to some of the old competitors that maybe were relevant like 4 or 5 years ago, but they don't really have a firm grasp on who's coming up and like the ones that are like the competitors of tomorrow, that kind of a thing. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Nice. Very nice. Andy, I think the next step is we got to get you in a company for category creation and let you wiggle around with that.
I don't know.
See what trouble you can get into.
I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. Like whenever I read stuff on category creation, I'm always like, yeah, like that totally makes sense. Of course, let's go. Like I love play like more than just as much as anyone else. And like there's in category pirates, it's all great stuff. I talked with Christopher Lockhead on my podcast, and he's just such a great educational, charismatic voice on category creation. I love the way he thinks. And once you start understanding the concept, you can see it everywhere. It would definitely be a challenge for me, especially like as I've been so ingrained in, competitive intel, and most of my career at this point has been not that. it's been about almost like the opposite. But there's definitely some elements to category creation that I think anybody can take, just like the importance of being different, not always better, and putting yourself like in like your own kind of area. As like when you look at typical G2 grid, like it's just a cluster of a bunch of different logos. That's how I think about competing. Like it's a very real thing. You're just like one in the crowd. And in some cases, like even if you're maybe not in like as high of a quality of a product in like that grid, it might still be like really important to be really well known so that people like know to reach out to you for a specific thing. I don't know. I'm just like thinking like the first things that come to my mind as it comes to like category creation and competing. But in either case, it would be hard, but it might be fun. Yeah, who knows?
Nice. We'll let you do all the good work we know you're going to do at Apollo before we move you on to another category.
Yeah, thank you. I'm like 2 months in at Apollo, so give me a break.
Don't worry, we'll let you root there for a while. But so I got another question for you, and I want to preface it by saying you do excellent work. You've done it for multiple companies, and I think it's very clear that you've earned the respect of a lot of people in our industry. And respect is kind of the word I really want to hone in on here. And if you look at our podcast, we try to hook you in with a very spicy take, right? But the real substance of what we're trying to do is make sure that people in our shoes don't feel like misfits and they earn that respect that I think you've commanded from at least your last 3 places. So do you have any practical advice for us here, as well as, the folks who want to listen in, on how you can come in and earn that respect and make sure that it's not just a quick-winded thing and it lasts, and make sure that it's part of your legacy?
There's a couple of pieces to this. There's like the respect of like peers and like people on LinkedIn, that kind of a thing. Then there's also like the respect of the company that you work for. And that's a very important thing to get right, because you could be doing like all the thought leader LinkedIn type stuff, but then really pissing off a bunch of people like actually in your company. And it could be a totally shallow thing. Like I've heard a lot about that. And that's something that you definitely have to be aware of. You gotta walk the walk. You can't just talk the talk, kind of a thing. And for me, it started with just trying to do my job as best as I could, trying to be as visible and upfront with other like teams and coworkers, trying to lend a hand as often as possible. I'm not going to say anything that's going to be super mind blowing right now. It's like, hey, how can I get involved? How can I like help win deals? How can I bring some light on topics that are a little bit like that aren't talked about very often, aren't discussed, aren't researched? And then how can I make sure that as many people as possible are aware of it and know what to do with it? In the process, you learn what works, what doesn't, what people like, what they don't like. I've had plenty of whoopsies and mistakes and all that kind of stuff that also makes for great content on LinkedIn. People love hearing about your losses, and so that's great. But it really just, and then at the end of the day, I've also realized that it's awesome to you. Of course, you want to do great work for the company that you work for, but it's really important to make connections with other people and create genuine relationships outside of your company. And I'm sure y'all are realizing this too with this podcast. My podcast was probably one of my biggest like relationship builders that I've like ever, even like next to LinkedIn. And that's not even from like a listener perspective or like a downloads perspective, but just like making these connections with people, talking one-on-one, that has really just helped me in my career just exponentially. And figuring out ways of learning from other people, making sure that my opinion was known. And it's like one of those things too, like strong opinions loosely held. Don't be afraid to share your opinion, but then if somebody has a better idea or can challenge that idea, don't be afraid to change your mind. I think that in just being authentic, I'm not really putting up like a show for really anyone. Like I am who I am. And so being authentic and sharing that in the workplace on LinkedIn, I think that people can usually see that and appreciate it. So that would be some of my tips. hopefully I have respect. I don't know. I appreciate you saying that. It's not like I ask people that kind of a thing. I hope that people do at least respect some of the decisions that I've made and how I present myself.
Love this. And I would like just to piggyback on some stuff that Eric said, but if right now there's a PMM listening to the pod and this person is looking to go into CI, what tips or tricks or just on top of your head you think that they should do or follow or learn to ultimately go into that direction?
Luckily, CI is just, I think, naturally a part of PMM anyway. And so just lean a little bit heavier into some of those things. And the way that I got started was really I put together like a CI newsletter for my company. And this was back at ZoomInfo. And I shared it like with everyone. And it honestly wasn't that much work. It was like, what are our competitors? How are they growing from like a headcount perspective, which you can pull from like LinkedIn or Peer Signal? It was how often our competitors were being mentioned on sales calls, like in Gong. So you can pull that pretty quickly, or Chorus, whatever your conversation intelligence tool is. And then just like weekly or like monthly competitor news. Like what are some moves that people are making? Is there an acquisition? Is there a product launch? Is there a funding announcement? And just summarizing that and publishing it. And it was not just helpful for me in understanding the landscape more and more on a consistent basis, but it also helped case like myself as the competitive intel person at ZoomInfo at the time, and just keep that label. And so anytime people thought competitive, they just thought naturally to loop me in. And it wasn't like an overnight thing. It was a result of just being associated with with that subject matter over the course of years. That, and then the other really important thing is that you're much better off if your CEO or your leadership team cares about it. Like the leadership team at ZoomInfo, ClickUp, and Apollo. That's one thing that they all have in common. They all care about what competitors are up to, like where the market's moving. And so any content that I would create about that automatically got some attention and visibility from them. And anyone knows if a leader thinks that something is important, then just more attention gets brought to it and you'll get more resources. And so that's always been really important. It's great if you have a passion for it and you really want to do it. But at the end of the day, you have to also be in an environment that cultivates that kind of thinking and celebrates it. And so that's one piece that you can't necessarily control 100% of the time. And so just make sure that you take a good look around. And if, this is like the company like would totally appreciate it, like you've spoken with people and you think that it's a good place for that, then 100% go for it. But also try not to fight too hard. Like at the end of the day, a lot of folks are just like ICs, and they might be 3, 6, however many years into their career. And for most companies, like you just probably won't pivot the entire mindset of the company on your own. And so it'll make a lot more sense to start within a company that appreciates that kind of stuff, and then you can deliver it. You know what I mean?
With this being your third like role building out a CI function, like looking back at your first time, Andy, like what fundamentals have changed or haven't changed and within the first 30 days of build of like those roles?
Fundamentals. The first company doesn't really count. Like when I was at ZoomInfo, it was like my first product marketing role. And so I didn't really have any kind of idea. I was like, I'm just going to show up and try to do the best I can. And so there wasn't as much strategy. It was just about me jumping in, doing whatever. With ClickUp and Apollo, I'll be honest, they're pretty similar. For me, I just try to talk with as many different people as possible and see what their perspective is on product marketing and competitive intel, who they think our biggest competitors are, why, who they think our biggest, like what they think our biggest differentiators are, like why we win, why we lose. And I try to learn like just like what they're working on so that down the road I can see if I can help them in some way, shape, or form. And I don't think that's atypical for anyone starting a new job. In the first 30 days, you want to get to know people. I think I've heard a lot of people saying that you shouldn't focus too much like just like going around talking to people. You should focus on executing. And there's some truth to that. I think that there's a few things that I've like, how do I want to say this? That I've realized like, oh, these are some quick wins. I've seen this this work really quickly at multiple companies. I know I can do this and it'll be like relatively easy for me. And it looks like a lot of people aren't really focusing on it. And so cool, like, let me just like, take care of this so I can show, oh yeah, hiring Andy was a good idea. Like he just like, turned that thing around. There's a couple of those things that just naturally throughout your career, you're going to notice and you'll be like, ooh, I'm going to hang on to that. And then I can just apply it to different companies that I work at. And so I've done some of those things before. That's important. But you do have to talk to people because you can't just be executing and expecting that it's all going to be super relevant and helpful to everyone. That's a big key of CI is not working on your own in like this little bubble that might have worked a decade ago when you're just like talking to the CEO or like the board, but now it's a very cross-functional thing. And so you have to work with other people and make sure that other people understand the value of the work that you're doing. And so I think that that's such like a thought leader, like BS, go hot take thing. No, you need to like just execute and don't worry about talking to 2 minutes. No, you can do both. So that's how I've approached it the past couple roles.
And it sounds to me like you should do both.
Yeah. You should do both.
Yeah, and I want to call out your post. Like I think it was last week. I've mentioned it like 3 or 4 times. You called out. It's like you don't feel as comfortable in the sales part of it, right? You've never been a salesperson, but you collaborate extra hard with that side to make sure that you're not coming off as an order deliverer,
Yeah.
right? And that resonated really strongly with me. And it sounds like that is good advice, no matter what function you're in, CI, product marketing, whatever. You can't be just dishing out orders all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
really like that.
That's just important to understand, like take yourself out of the equation. How do people see your role? And what does the most common interaction look like? And for these sales all hands meetings, what does it look like? It looks like at the surface level, a bunch of people telling sales what to do. Hey, we have a new product that's coming out. You have to talk about it. Hey, we have this new resource. You should share this with customers. Hey, we have a new process for billing or for whatever. So you have to make sure you apply that. And so it's like at the end of the day, do you want to just like pile on and just be another person telling sales what to do? No, you want to come in as as a collaborator, as someone that like wants them to succeed, as a partner. And the same goes for product. Like everyone that talks to product is trying to influence the roadmap. And so, yeah, if you go into some kind of conversation, you're going to start to feel some walls coming up on their end because they don't want to feel like you're just coming in to shake up their entire world. And so you want to come in as a partner, learn like what their day-to-day is, what they're succeeding with, what they're struggling with, and try to get as much of their perspective as possible as it like relates to some of the recommendations that you give. And yeah, the post that you're talking about, Eric, was like when it comes to like my deep dive competitive enablement sessions, I'm presenting like 45 minutes to the sales team about a specific competitor. I'm not just going to be up there just like shoving a bunch of information down their throats and saying this is because CI says to do it. It's not what I'm going to do. As often as possible, I'm going to share some findings that I've uncovered because of the work that sales has done, the things that make sense, the things that don't make sense. And then I'm going to bring sales in as part of the presentation to like, see, like these people are like really crushing it. They've done a great job. And so that's why we've come to this conclusion. It's because of you. And so we want to make sure that everyone else understands how to crush it like these people. And usually if you can speak their language and show that you've, done your research and you've gotten to know them, then that team that you're speaking with will respect what you're talking about much more. They'll understand your role and what your goals are, and they'll respond a lot better too.
Awesome take. And on that note, topic of research, if you're feeling a little unsure or you'd like to beef up your research, there's always a March cohort for Ready for Launch. Go ahead and sign up now, and Andy will teach you a great session about research.
My man, thank you for the plug. I appreciate that.
Learned a lot about
Of course, man. Yeah.
I was gonna
it.
ask,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, how do we stay connected with you for individuals who are learning about you for the first time?
Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn, Andy McCotter-Bicknell. Follow Healthy Competition on LinkedIn. It's just Healthy Competition. It's a big broccoli icon. You can subscribe to the newsletter too. You can join the community. We got so much stuff going on. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll probably, I share most of that stuff there. So that's a good place to start.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. I'm a member of the community myself. You've given a lot back to all of us in there, and we really appreciate you joining the three misfits of We're Not Marketers.
Dude, this is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
You guys got a good vibe. Like, definitely keep this going. I love what you've put together here. It's great. A format. It's a lot of fun. Definitely different than a lot of the other podcasts. So definitely keep going.
You're not excluding your own. I hope you're not excluding your own.
Mine's a little bit different though. It's just one-on-one. I love like the camaraderie of a group of guys. My favorite podcast is My First Million. Just like the main two hosts, and sometimes they bring on an interview or bring on a guest. Hey, I love that kind of style, and you guys are doing a great job here. So definitely keep it up.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. That means a lot.
And it sounds like we'll be asking you for a future season then.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to hang out whenever. So just let me know.
Amazing.
Thanks, Andy.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to We're Not Marketers. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, review our podcast, and share this episode with other PMMs. Thanks again, and see you soon.